Dose of wisdom, insight, and companion connections.
This is good. We ended our last conversation and you said something extremely profound. I've actually gotten a couple questions from people who listen. You said that your pastors back in New York taught you not to beg or beseech God. Mm-hmm. In our present day context, not only are we're not necessarily told to beg God, but what's shown and what's demonstrated in the church, in our homes, is a begging of God. You know, we continuously pray the same prayer day in, day out, asking for the same thing. Please, God, do it for me. And I really want us to take some time to unpack this thing about not begging and beseeching God.
Mm-hmm. Sure. Well, the only time that you feel the need to beg and beseech and plead and war with another being is if you continue to see God as this magnanimous being that is outside of yourself. So then this all-knowing, all-powerful, expansive, intelligent presence is outside of me, up somewhere in the sky. He sit up high, he look down low. He is looking to punish me for not getting this behavior right and that behavior right. So in order for me to move forward in any part of my life, I need permission from this magnanimous presence to be able to do that. Well, if that is your narrative and that is your understanding, then sure, you belong down on your knees, pillow or not, begging and beseeching this large presence that is willing to impugn you at any time for whatever it is that you need. But if you're willing to shift your understanding to the knowing and to the truth that God is not outside of ourselves, but God is as ourselves, then you don't have to beg for something that you already are. Period. You don't have to plead with something that exists as you. And when I say that, because maybe that's confusing for some minds. When I say that, let's take it to a place where most people in, let's just say Christianity, understand, okay? We believe that we're made in the image of God.
Christ in us, the hope of glory. We say all of these things.
Yes, correct. But when we say we're made in the image of God, no one can imagine themselves as God. And so we don't see that we get to show up as the physical representation of an all-being presence. We don't see that. We don't see that that's how we get to show up. Because who has ever physically seen God? Who, when, where, how? Except that we see each other. Mm-hmm. Which compounds our responsibility for how we represent that presence. Mm. If I loaned you some of my jewelry, when it's time for me to get my jewelry back, I'm not gonna come and say, "Can you pretty please? I just really need it back. Will you just really give it to me? Please." No, it belonged to me in the first place. When I come to collect on it, I'm gonna call you and say, "Hey, have that ready. I'm gonna do a shake, rattle, and roll, come by there, stop, drop, and get my stuff." And we're not gonna have any further dialogue about it. Okay?
It needs to be done.
And that's the point I'm making. As a representation of God, there needs to be no further begging, pleading, and crying out and bleeding of the eyes about something that was given to me to start with. Mm. Something that I came into being as. I came into being as my God self. spirit first and I came into a physical form. And I'm here to represent that which you cannot see except you see me. You can't avoid God in me, as me, through me, around me. There's no avoiding that. So you don't have to beg. You just have to know whose you are and know how you show up in this world as God. And you just be. You don't beg, you be.
That's the true definition. The true definition of representative is exactly what you said. Even when we think about it in politics, your representative is the person who speaks not for you, but as you. Mm-hmm. When it comes down to political matters, they represent you. They are your voice. And we really need to take back our words, and I say take back, but since we're talking about like represent, we possess that power, that story, that narrative, and we possess our truth, the truth of who we are, who we truly are.
Yeah, our authentic nature. We're all God beings. I mean, listen, you're a spirit being who's having a human experience. That's it. And unless your spirit came from some other form or nature that we know not of, you came here as a God being. Here's how Pastor Greg says it. He says, and this is so good to me. He says, when you see me standing here as just my one self. So imagine when you see Nadia, you just see her as the one whole person. But beneath Nadia are all of these inner workings that comprise the whole of who I am. And if you were to grab any piece of my DNA, put it under the microscope, you would see all of these molecular things working. All of these atoms and cells and so forth. Yeah? So in that way, we are the microscopic view of God. You get that?
Yeah.
Get that? Yeah. Yeah, there's the one infinite presence that is intangible and unending. And then there's us who get to be all of those little inner workings beneath the layers and the surface, and show up in this world as the microscopic view of God. Yeah. Definitely.
So it's holiday time, and there's a lot of talk now about vision board parties and New Year's resolutions. How do we cope and deal with today instead of focusing so much on those resolutions that we made last year and the year before and years before that? But I think we tend to lose ourselves in these resolutions, these goals that many of us never ever achieve.
You know what? The ultimate goal has to always be presence. It's always got to be the right now. And it's not a problem to create external goals. But the external goal should never negate the internal goal, which is to always be present. So the reality is the external goal at some point is bound to expire. It is. It is bound to expire, and it's bound. At some point you might experience some failure in that. But that's not the ultimate goal in the first place. Because there's always a now. Even your next will have its now. Like there's always a now. So the focus is not to be on, I want to do this and I want to do that. And it's okay to envision. It's okay to dream. It's okay to set goals. But if you get so far gone into future that you lose presence, you've already failed. You've already failed. You have failed at the inner goal, which is to stay right here, right now. Yeah. So, do your vision boards, because Lord knows I've done at least 3 of them. And I have allowed them to manifest. You know what? I don't pine over it. I envision in that right now, that right here, right now, I envision. And I say, okay, what do I need to become in order that this might happen right now? Who do I need to be right now? What do I need to do right now? And I'm going to tell you where my vision boards are. They're in my closet, manifesting away, not distracting me from the right now. Yeah.
We talk a lot about silence in our group, the conversation, which you should definitely check out our website, YourSoulCareCommunity.com, for our next conversation event. We've gotten so accustomed to noise. So whenever there's silence, you find people get very uncomfortable. And I just really want us to take some time to talk about the beauty of silence and the beauty of breath, because we talked a little bit about that too last time.
I recently did an interview with a friend who I went to college with, Amani, and you can follow her on Instagram at Happy Nappy Vegan. And I did an interview for her, and I was asked the question about self-care and soul care and what has become one of my greatest practices. And I actually said silence. I think it's a lost language that we've forgotten, that we have taken for granted. Silence is my prayer language. Because of course I believe prayer is dialogue, and it is more listening than speaking. If we're having a conversation, I'm the one always talking, you're gonna accuse me of talking too much. That's not a conversation. You're just talking. So silence is probably one of the most beautiful gifts that I have found, especially more recently, because it gives me a chance to rest in the moment and hear. It gives me a chance to hear not only my thoughts, but it gives me a chance to honestly sit back and listen to my spirit communicating with the divine, with spirit. And it's amazing, but how that conversation goes. I depend on it for direction.
You have to.
And clarity.
It's the only way.
You gotta be quiet.
Yeah.
And it leads me to one of my favorite scriptures. I have about 3 or 4 of them, but this statement we say all the time, but we haven't really unpacked it. Be still and know that I am God. If you break that down, be still. Shut down your mind, shut down your shut up, be still. And be still means that I can't go back in the past, but I can't go forward in the future. Be still means I have to be present. And until I be still, I won't know that the I am
is present here with
right
me,
now,
as me.
Me, as me. Be still and know I am. You can just stop right there.
Correct.
Yeah, because past is taken care of and future is taken care of.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Be still, then you'll know that I am. You can stop right there.
Yeah. You can't get clarity any other way except that you get still and you get quiet, and then you can not only you can not only get